Well, it's good to know the plan's proceeding
確
along
かで
well.
すわよね。確かに昨日の時点で入江所長は女王感染者が在宅しているのを確認したんですわよね。
在宅を確認なんてひどい。夏風邪をひいたというので様子を見に行ったんです。ですからリカさんの死体が見つかるなんてありえるわけがないじゃないですか。
そうですわよ。ありえるわけがないんですわ。でもそれを確認しないと信じてしまって誤解する人もいますので。
誰が何の誤解をするんですか？
フルでリカが死んだなどと村に知れたら大変な騒ぎになりますし。
Now I'm certain that she's lying. I don't even need to wait to hear from Tomitake-san. Takano-san's objective is the execution of the emergency manual. Its premise is about to be destroyed, and that's why she's panicking. She finally found someone who showed an interest in her research, which made her feel better about herself. Yet that someone is about to cut her off, and that's why she's panicking. She's as pitiful as can be. If it were possible, if there were a way to reach out to her, I would reach out to save her from drowning. But my hand will never reach. It won't reach her unless she reaches out. She's drowning, but as long as she refuses to seek help, I'll never reach her. Until she realizes it herself. No matter how much I reach out, she'll refuse my helping hand. However, my selfish imagination will have to stop there for now. Is Rika-chan home or not? If she goes into the details, she'll become suspicious of me, since I told her I saw Rika-chan at home. That will put me in a very dangerous position. A man who had been on the phone for some time put down the receiver.
さんさ、電話に出ません。不在のようです。
監視班は何と言ってるの？
いえ、監視体制に入った17日以降、外出の形跡はなく、電話の一本もありません。
ねえ、入江所長。ということは、まだ中にリカちゃんたちはいるということですわよね。
Yeah, this is where Irie is going to get in trouble, and maybe we'll get that unending phone call where where they go, the phone is still ringing.
ええ、そういうことだと思いますがどうでしょう。もうだいぶ治りかけて元気になってますからね。うまく抜け出して遊びに行ってるのかもしれません。ほら、今日は綿流しのお祭りじゃありませんか。リカさんの家の近くには確か模擬店部会の水場が設けられていたはずです。人の出入りも多いですから、監視の方が見逃してしまった可能性も。
どうなの？そんなことはありえるの？
入江所長が出られた後には必ずシールしています。まさか窓から出たのでもない限りありえないでしょう。
山犬はあくまでも R は家を出ていないと、そういうのよね。
そうです。間違いありません。 R は R 宅内です。そして17日以降一度たりとも外出していません。絶対に在宅しています。
それを確認したのが入江所長だけで、山犬の誰一人確認していないのにそうだと言える。
One of the mountain dogs looked at me. I swallowed, then nodded to him.
ならどうして沖宮署で R の死体が出てきたりするの？
ですからそれは誤報の可能性も。その後の情報では身元不明死体の検視はまだ終わっておらず、フルで理科であるというのは何者かの憶測に過ぎない可能性が高いと。
もうその話は聞き飽きたわ。その怪情報が流れて東京にまで伝わってからもう何時間が経過してると思ってるの？このままでは東京に。
Takano-san realized that I was standing next to her and shut her mouth. I could already tell what she wanted to say, though.
さんさ、東京の野村様よりお電話です。
だからしばらく待てと言ってるのに。
Takano-san usually has a lot of self-control, but she's not doing so well right now. Even her body language makes it clear how irritated she is. Does she have a habit of scratching herself? Oh. As she folded her arms, I could see marks where her nails touched her skin. She's clearly not doing well.
高野さんはお忙しいようですね。私が出ましょう。野村さんですか？初めてお電話いただく方ですね。
いえ、サンサー邸ですので。
The mountain dog looked alternately between Takano-san and my faces.
入江所長、今ちょっと立て込んでおりますの。大変申し訳ございませんけど、所長室にお戻りいただき。
そうですか。そうですね。入江機関の運営はあなたに任せています。私が口を出すことではありませんね。
誰か所長室までお送りして。早く。
And keep an eye on him. She's basically telling me to get out. I left the security room quietly.
もしもし高野です。お待たせして申し訳ございませんわ。
何度もお電話して申し訳ございません。いかがですか？
申し訳ございません。今急ぐように指示をしているところです。すでに内部協力員を沖宮署に向かわせましたので、その連絡を待つだけなのですが。
そうですか。ではもうじきですね。では何時頃までにこちらにご連絡をいただけますか？
もちろん分かり次第すぐにご連絡申し上げます。ただそれがいつになるかはお約束が難しいのですが、大至急、急がせておりますので。
サンサ、飛行機に乗ったことはおありですか？
もちろんですわ。
飛行機が離陸するために加速するとき、この時に大きな出力を得るためエンジントラブルを起こすことがあるのだそうです。その時まだ大して速度が出ていないならブレーキをかけ離陸を断念するそうですが、4発の旅客機ならうち1つのエンジンが壊れていても飛行は可能ですから。それはもちろんこの度の作戦も同じです。エンジンは1つではありませんから、十分な速度が出ていれば離陸に踏み切るでしょう。後のことはどうとでもなります。ですがこの度の作戦という飛行機はまだ十分な速度どころか、これから離陸しようという段階です。お分かりですね。
The first step of the operation was Tomatake's assassination. That hasn't even happened yet. So what Nomura was saying was correct.
もしあなたが乗った旅客機が離陸前からエンジンが故障していると分かったらどうしますか？降りるでしょう？同じことです。離陸前からエンジンに故障が見つかったため、乗客であるクライアントたちが飛行機を降りたがっています。
If they were already at the point of no return, then a little mistake wouldn't matter that much. But since they're still before that point, they're overly cautious about even a tiny mistake.
それが本当に故障なのか、今点検させているところなのです。
存じ、あなたは管制塔の管制官。
Don't make us cancel the flight, if you know what I mean.
私は彼らをなだめる添乗員。離陸の見込みの薄くなる飛行機から降りたいと言い出すクライアントたち、そんな彼らを懸命になだめているところです。これ以上事態の改善が遅れると、この飛行プラン自体がなかったことになります。
And then we'll kill the traffic
高野
controller.
さんさ、それはつまりあなたの祖父の論文が世まいごとの打分俗文であったと烙印をされることですよ。一人の少女が死ぬと村人が全員錯乱する。バカみたい。何を根拠にそんな世まいごとを。この分厚い研究結果は全てそんな空想論文だ。おかしい。高野ひふみと高野美代って何なのかしら。おかしいおかしいおかしい。
No, stop laughing at me. Don't laugh at my grandfather's work! Takano ground her teeth. She squeezed the receiver so tightly her knuckles went white.
となってしまいます。お分かりですか？
I'll laugh at you again.
これはあなたとあなたの尊敬してやまないおじいちゃんの
ええ、お気遣いをありがとうございますわ。
安心してください。私はあなたの唯一の味方です。あなたにとって一番幸せに報われる結末になるよう最後までお手伝いします。ですのでどうか私の顔も立てて沖宮署の動向を確かめてください。私も努力してますけど機嫌を損ねるクライアントの皆さんのお相手は楽ではないもので。
ご迷惑をおかけします。もうしばらくだけご猶予を。ええ、はい、失礼いたします。
Takano made sure that Nomura hung up first, and then hung up herself.
おこのぎから連絡はまだないの？電話して。
三佐、つい10分前に電話したばかりです。
Call him again.
情報が入ればすぐに連絡してくることになっています。少しお休みになられては。先ほどのコーヒーも。
The unit member tried to serve a cup of coffee to Takano, but she knocked it aside. The cup fell on the floor, making a black puddle. Everybody in the security room went silent.
何よ。ボケっとしている暇があったら誰かモップでも持ってきなさい。
And get me a new cup of coffee.
10分前に電話してても構わない。もう一度かけて催促して。沖宮署の死体がフルで理科ではないという裏付けと行方不明の富武の確保よ。
Takano was starting to realize something. By now, she could sense that there was something behind Tomitake's disappearance. Tomitake must know something about what's happening at the Okinomiya police station. He might look dumb, but he somehow found out about the plan, and he was trying to mess with Takano. So Tomitake was clearly behind all of it. Takano had been intending to let him enjoy the festival that night if he behaved. Well, that's so nice of her. The quickest way for Takano to be certain of what was happening would be to see Rika Furude's face at her house. But she couldn't leave and she couldn't trust Irie. And because there were too many people around for the festival, the Mountain Dogs had their hands full. If she would answer the phone, that'd do. But she wouldn't answer. That meant the house was empty. And that Rika Furude's death was real. What went wrong? Who deceived Takano? There was only one person. The only person who claimed that he saw her at the house. Irie was the most suspicious person around. Tomitake had left the hotel and was nowhere to be found. So maybe Rika had left her house and was hiding somewhere else. In other words, Irie betrayed her and was in contact with Tomitake?
入江所長に監視をつけなさい。
まさか所長の在宅確認が。どうして所長が。
富武はいつの段階でかわからないけれど私たちの計画に気づいたのよ。そして宿を脱出し R も秘密裏に安全なところへ避難させた。私たちはまんまと騙されて空き家を見張り続けてたのよ。
空き家ということはありえません。
We looked at it the whole time, and it definitely there's a house there.
人影が確かに。
それが R だという保証はあるの？ R じゃない。監視する山犬を騙すために誰かがあそこに身代わりとして留守をしている。そうよ、そうに違いないわ。おこのぎに R 宅への強行突入を命じなさい。誰がいるんだか知らないけどそいつは富武や理科に通じている。そいつを締め上げるのよ。
しかし R 宅への突入は本日は不可能です。 R 宅前は水場になっており祭りの関係者が常にごった返しています。今日の祭りが終わる深夜までは不可能です。
それを何とかするのが山犬でしょうが。なんとかしなさい。なんとか。なんで私が言うことじゃ聞いてくれないの？私の言うことは聞けないっていうの？私の上の保護者の言うことじゃなきゃ聞けないっていうの？
That was a funny noise. The unit members could only watch in silence. They knew that nothing could comfort her. The noise of the phone suddenly broke the silence. Takano practically jumped.
はい。
It's Nomura again. She wants to laugh at you some more.
さん朗報です。カラスが東京調査部の定期連絡先の電話番号特定に成功したとのことです。
Well, you know, Tomitake, I always knew you were gonna die, so best of luck with, being alive.
電話番号は獅子骨しない。山犬が住所の特定作業に入りました。
富武だ。間違いない。ひばり、腕利きを集めろ。奴は用心してるぞ。白崎はバックアップしろ。
了解。ひばり湾より全範囲へ突入先が特定され次第出動全員登場しろ。
くそ、電話会社の協力員はまだか。
調べさせてます。5分です。
It was 8:45 a.m. They didn't know where in Shishibone City he was staying, but depending on where it was, it might be too far to get there before 9 a.m. They would have to depend on luck.
バカ野郎、5分じゃねえ、50秒だ。
I imagine what's going to happen is Tomitake is going to be on the phone at 9 a.m. and then they're going to break into the room.
何やって
Like while he's on the phone or
端
something.
末に番号を打つだけだろうが。
But maybe when they break in, the receiver's going to be on the floor and he's going to be gone. That would be a twist. Except that I am already saying it, so if it happens, it's not a twist, but whatever.
来ました。住所は市内平坂1丁目のホテルモデラート。交換機を経由しているため部屋番号は不明。
聞こえたな、ひばり。
了解。出動。
Luckily, Hirosaka Block 1 was close enough. Okonagi had been right. Tomitake was hiding nearby. The garage doors of Okonagi Gardeners opened one after another, and the white van sped off in a hurry.
や
That
ら
landscaping isn't gonna get itself done. Come on, boys, let's all roll out.
今度はこっちの番だ。まさか調査部に俺の子飼いが混じってるとは思わなかったろうよ。こっちが今度は貴様を奇襲してやるぜ。
Hotel Moderato. Despite its name, it had a cheap stained sign out front. A dilapidated business hotel on the outskirts of town. The perfect place for someone to lay low in. They might draw in some guests if they renovated the building into a more modern love hotel, but it was clear they didn't have the capital for renovations and could go under any minute. That's the kind of hotel it was. Tomitake was staying in one of the rooms on the second floor. The interior of the room was worse than his previous hotel. It only had a bed and a phone. But that phone was what he needed the most at the moment. If he didn't have to receive regular reports, he would keep changing hotels, which was safer. But he needed up-to-date information from the research division, and his course of action would change according to that information. Moving about unnecessarily might cause miscommunication in case of an emergency. Tomitake never suspected that there was a spy in the research division. The ticking sound from the clock echoed throughout the room. It was almost 9 a.m., but the phone might not ring at 9 on the dot. Tomitake waited in front of the phone patiently. He tried to organize the information in his head so he could answer questions more calmly. At the same time, he kept in mind the possibility of an attack. At that time, he heard a woman scream in the distance. Oh, this is interesting music. Why, they don't know what room he's in, so they're just breaking in all the rooms? Oh, I know this song. Never mind. It happened again. He heard another scream. Tomitake got the sense that something was happening inside the hotel. His intuition told him that someone was checking every single room with a master key. Tomitake opened the curtain a little. He saw several mountain dogs who were blocking all the ways out of the hotel. How long had they been there? Finally, they'd finally found where he was. Tomitake could hear their loud footsteps. He heard voices too.
空室だ次
This cheap hotel wouldn't have chains on the door. They had no means to fend off the master key. Tomitake could tell there were around 20 of them. No, maybe there were more. It would be no use trying to fight with them. All he could do was hide. Under the bed, or in the bathroom. At the very least, the ceiling wouldn't open up like in the movies. Should he jump out the window? It was the second floor after all. It was perfectly possible to survive a jump. They would be expecting that, however. Yet this was right on city grounds. If he was confident in his legs, it wouldn't be impossible to outrun them. Tomitake soon heard footsteps outside his door. This was it. He jumped from the window. Of course, there were mountain dogs on the ground waiting for him. They pointed and about 6 of them started running after him. Tomitake shot off right from the position he landed in. This took the mountain dogs by surprise. He had started to dash right after he jumped out the second floor window. Tomitake was prepared to do something like that. He had been training in case of an emergency just like this one.
ひばり10よりひばり1標的発見追跡中応援求む
ひばり湾より白鷺標的は裏通りを西に向かい逃走制圧しろ
白鷺了解白鷺234そっちへ行くぞ来たぞやつだ
3 members of the mountain dogs jumped out from behind the streetlight and stood in Tomitake's way. They prepared to stop him, but Tomitake kept running at full speed. They quickly realized that he wasn't running towards them to knock them down. He was trying to run past them. There's no point in them taking a fighting position. They lowered themselves and tried to tackle him simultaneously.
今だ
I never really knew Tomitake as like the superhero action guy that could take on, you know, a elite force of intelligence agents. I think they're counterintelligence, right? Of course, then again, they do have specialists in their group, so I mean, maybe Tomitake is that kind of person. Maybe he's going to be the superhero in this section. Kind of what I'm getting from this Tomitake jumped over them line. He jumped over them like an Olympic athlete leaping over a hurdle. But he wasn't an Olympic athlete, and they weren't hurdles. Tomitake's heel struck one of the dogs. The 2 flanking Tomitake thought they seized hold of him. However, as he flew over them easily, he grabbed onto the 2 of their heads and smashed them against each other. Tomitake knew that wouldn't stop them, but at least he'd gain a little time to run.
標的西側阻止線を突破追跡中バカ野郎何やってんだ白鷺10車両で回り込め2つ先のブロックを左折で9時方向に奴を捉える大丈夫かくそ逃がすなあの野郎なんくそ話が止まらねえ
Stop clogging up the comms. Tomitake saw a van with its door wide open ahead of him. It couldn't stop in time, and it hit the wall. As soon as it stopped, several mountain dogs jumped out of the van.
是が非でも止めろ後がないぞかかってきやがりちしょめこっちは5人だ
Tomitake saw 5 men ahead of him, but he didn't think even those 5 could stop him. Why do trains sound their horns at people on the rails? It's not because the train will get damaged. It's because the people will get hurt. I am the train. He yelled at them like the horn on a train. He wasn't warning them because they were in his way. He was warning them to move so that they didn't get hurt.
こっちはこれだけ人数がいるんだ体重だけ見たって奴の5倍だぞ
Alright boys, don't let him through because we kind of broke our car crashing it into the wall. So we're not really chasing after him after this.
それで押しかけてもなお奴を止められないってのか
Then again, he is pretty muscular. Maybe he is strong enough to do all this.
ありえないありえねえ絶対ここで止めろかかれ
Tomitake didn't grin. After all, trains don't grin. Trains say, "Oh!" I think. Supposedly. Right into the chest. And
富武の確保に成功
yeah,
し
I
ま
was
した
gonna say he didn't get through that.
本当あっさりだったわね。いろいろと聞きたいことがあるわ。殺しちゃダメよ。こっちへ連行して。どうせ殺すけど、彼には似合いの死が。
Trains also don't get captured by an elite counterintelligence group. Usually. The phone continued to ring inside of Tomatake's empty hotel room. Within 30 minutes, Tomatake was dragged through the back door of the Irie Institute, wearing a gag and handcuffs. Tomatake didn't even move, as though he was sedated. The Mountain Dog members had carried him out of the van. Irie saw Tomatake from his window and came out of his office in a hurry. Takano was already there.
これは何事ですか、高野さん。
The mountain dog silently glared at Irie. He realized that he shouldn't have left his room.
二郎さんの姿が見えないと思ったら、なんと末期発症をしていたのですわ。不審に思い、山犬たちに探させていて正解でした。
末期発症、富武さんがですか？
Of course, Tomatake didn't reply. Irie decided not to say any more.
そうですか。それはとても不幸なことです。すぐに治療薬を投与してください。
もちろんですわ。投与の間に合う段階だといいのですが。
Seems a little too happy about this. Irie already knew. The mountain dogs had tracked him down. Irie wasn't sure if Tomatake was able to arrange something with Tokyo. He wasn't even sure if the bloodhounds had been called in. He could guess that Tomatake didn't have time. If the bloodhounds were called in, the mountain dogs would catch that information. And if that was the case, they would likely drop everything and run. But Tomatake was captured and they brought him back to the Institute. The men hadn't gotten that far and they were still trying to fix the damage. In other words, Tomatake wasn't able to do what they had hoped for. What were they going to do to Tomatake? Since they brought him back alive, were they planning to torture a confession out of him? That would be very dangerous for him. He'd likely end up dead. Irie realized that he had to do something in Tomatake's place. The main reason why Irie had to rescue Tomatake was because he had no way of contacting Tokyo on his own. Takano wanted Irie to be useless, so she never told him about how to get in touch with Tokyo. Irie could receive phone calls from Tokyo, but he could only call them through Takano. Therefore, Tomatake was the key. Unless Irie rescued him, they couldn't possibly win. But Irie wasn't like the mountain dogs. He was simply a researcher. There was no way Irie could rescue Tomatake from such a high-security area. There were 8 mountain dogs in the building. There were usually only 2, but Takano had called in more. Of course, the basement was a highly secured area, and one needed an access card to get in. That card was only given to people in Irie's position. In addition to the access card, one would need a fingerprint match as well. The access card alone wouldn't do it. Therefore, the only person who could rescue Tomatake from that high-security basement was Irie. And so, even if it was impossible, Irie had to do it. Irie bunched up his hands into fists and held them tight to encourage himself. But he only noticed that his fists were shaking. Irie, did you forget? Irie remembered what Akasaka had told him.
ただ、自らの危機を図るのはとても難しいことです。まだ大丈夫、多分大丈夫などと思っているうちに連絡の機会さえ逃してしまいかねません。少しでも嫌な予感がしたら緊急時と判断していいでしょう。陰謀の度合いから考えて敵は私たちを生かしはしません。 くれぐれもご用心を。
Irie felt the cold sweat pulling on his back. Was this the emergency Akasaka was talking about? He shouldn't think that it was still okay. He might lose the chance to run. He realized that trying to do something by himself was foolish. He had his security access card, true, but that didn't mean he had to rescue Tomitake by himself. Just like how everyone else was trying to combine their efforts, he should also ask for help. Also, Tomitake was in their hands, which meant that the mountain dogs had realized they were under attack and were preparing to counter. It was very possible that they were suspicious of Irie too. Once they broke into Rika's house, Irie's lies would be exposed. Indeed, this was the emergency Akasaka was talking about. Irie had realized that. He was already in danger. He needed to leave immediately. The Sonozaki residence was their gathering spot in case of an emergency. His allies were congregating at the Sonozaki residence. He should explain the situation to them and think about how to rescue Tomitake. Takano probably wouldn't kill Tomitake immediately. She was intending to kill him that night as the 5th year's curse. So there was still a little time left. He had allies, and with a security access card, there was still a chance to rescue him. Irie had to let Akasaka know that he was escaping. If they became suspicious of Irie, they would check the house and Akasaka would be in danger too. In other words, it could cause a chain reaction. Irie didn't miss his last chance to escape, but he still had to do his final job. Irie picked up the phone at his desk, called Rika's home number, and left. It would continue to ring like that, sounding the emergency signal. Irie thought back to when he wondered how long he was going to stay in this director's room. He never knew this day would come so suddenly. He noticed the framed picture of his parents on his desk. Irie had become a doctor, so he could clear up the misunderstanding between his parents and regain his family ties. But how did he get involved in something like this? No, he would return. He would return and continue the fight against Hinamizawa syndrome. He vowed to himself that he would never abandon that responsibility.
必ず戻ってくるよ、父さん、母さん。
Irie said his final goodbye and left the director's office.
サンサ、所長室の内線から外線へ通話中です。電話番号は R 卓です。
え？どういうことそれは？盗聴できるの？
もちろんです。ここでもモニターできます。
It's just gonna ring. One of the members flipped a switch. It was the sound of a ringtone.
一体このタイミングで入江所長は何をあの家に電話しようというの？
やはり R は在宅していて、富武を捕らえたことを連絡しようとしているのでは。
ありえないことじゃないわ。聞かれてるとも知らずに。
You know what the twist would be? Is if someone picked up the phone and it was Rika. What was Irie going to talk about? Takano waited patiently to eavesdrop on a conversation. And there was nothing but a ringtone. It had been over 30 seconds. There was no answer. Nobody was home.
所長も根気がありますね。
This is actually a really good distraction method here because it probably gets all the mountain dogs to not pay attention to the fact that he's getting in his car and leaving right now.
必ずいるはずだという強い確信があるのでしょうか。
サンサ、裏口のモニターカメラに所長の姿が。
The black and white quad display monitor showed Irie running out the back door.
どういうこと？じゃあ誰が所長室から電話をしているの
？Takano became utterly confused, but the ringtone continued. Quick, somebody go hang up that phone, it's getting annoying. It couldn't be. Takano finally realized what was going on.
罠よ。奴は私たちが監視しているのを知ってて、わざと空電話をかけて油断させた。入江は裏切り者の仲間よ。捕らえて。
一回保安室入江所長を制圧せよ。標的は裏口から職員駐車場へ。
The two mountain dogs who were playing cards in the security room on the first floor jumped into action. The security room was located next to the back door, so Irie was still within reach. Irie had made a serious mistake. He could have left the clinic during the 30 seconds Takano and her men were listening to the ringtone. But when he got to the parking lot... Oh no, Irie, please! He realized he forgot his car key on the desk in the director's office, so he had to go back and get it. It was only at this point that he realized he shouldn't have gone back. He should have escaped on foot. But Irie wasn't used to emergencies, unlike Akasaka. It was a typical mistake any normal person who had never gone through anything dangerous would make. Although he made mistakes, he didn't forget to call Akasaka. People usually become extremely clumsy when they're in a rush. All he has to do is turn the key, but he couldn't even do that smoothly. He kept turning the key, and finally the engine started. Irie still thought that he was alright. Even if one of them questioned him, all he would have to do would be to say that he was going out to get something. When he released the handbrake with his sweaty left hand, he saw two of the mountain dogs dashing out the back door. As the two of them looked around, Irie's eyes met with one of theirs in the rearview mirror. He pointed at Irie's car, and the two of them started running towards it. The two of them looked extremely serious, and not like they were chasing after him to return a dropped pin. Irie's body was soaked with sweat. Before the two of them could jump on the car, Irie stomped on the gas pedal, and the car took off after spinning its wheels. Of course, the dogs didn't give up. They got into their own car and started to chase after Irie.
保安より本部、所長は車両で逃走中。強制停車させますか。どうぞ。
三佐、
高野よ。おそらく行き先は古出神社ね。神社に行かれたら今日は人だらけ。捉えることは難しくなるわ。多少の怪我も構わない。行かせてはダメ。強引に停車させなさい。
保安了解。これより強制停車に移る。念のためバックアップを送れ。どうぞ。
本部了解。ウグイスをバックアップに送る。だがバックアップは待つな。直ちに制圧せよ。
So I feel like this is going to be a little bit longer, which is fine, but I do need to take a really quick break, so we will be right back.